said, I've tried drugs, I've tried this, I'm going to try God. People say, you can't try God. I found out that God doesn't read lips, he reads hearts.
Mm.
He knew what I was thinking, and that day forward, boom, got to my cell. I asked for a Bible, and that became Bible college for me. It was cool as can be. I had a captive audience, and
Mm-hmm.
my message was how to be happy in prison. And I started a group called God's Gang 17 years ago. I said, I led you guys into this, I'm going to lead you out of this. And for the last 17 years, I made a declaration. This time, instead of being pissed off at God, I said, I'm going to become a professional forgiver.
Welcome to the Recovery Roundtable podcast, where the journey to sobriety opens up through powerful discussions and shared experiences. Join your host, Mark, who will bring you stories of triumph and resilience from the heart of Pacific Shores recovery. Every episode offers insights and support, guiding you through the challenges of addiction recovery. Thank you for joining our community. If you're ready to start or continue your recovery journey, we're here to inspire and support you. Let's explore recovery together.
I am really excited to have
thank
you here.
I love it. Yeah, no, man. Like I said, I got to watch some of your things like that, and you're a great communicator.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, what's funny is one of my earlier memories, and one of the gifts that I don't even know you're aware you gave me was, this was back probably late 80s, early 90s. And my dad says, we found a new church, because I was raised in the church. Our family, through marriage, started Calvary Chapel and Chuck and Kay Smith. And so we were on this side of it.
Right.
And then, late 80s, my dad took me to a place called Set Free.
Oh, wow.
And little blonde hair me looks up and sees these dudes with tattoos. And I don't know if you know this, but I'm a white boy from Orange County, Newport Beach. And so being exposed to different cultures and tattoos, I remember terrified. And one of the bikers had his glasses on, and my dad goes, shake his hand, son. And I'm freaking out.
I love it,
like, oh my gosh, he goes, shake his hand. And when I do that, he lowered his glasses. And it was the first time I was able to, this is going to sound weird, but like I could see his soul.
Yeah.
And it was beautiful. And he just smiled. He goes, welcome to Set Free. And I remember looking at my dad like, this is the coolest thing ever. And then
nice.
I think one of your sons was rapping on stage. And I remember I discovered MC Hammer back then.
Oh,
and
that was the popular.
Yes.
Yeah, we took all his music.
And he was rapping like Hammer, but about God. And that was the first time I met you. That was probably 35 years ago. And today we're together. So man, I want to hear your story and what led you to starting church with I guess a lot of times the forgotten.
Yeah. Well, like I says, I grew up like so many people, in that household. I'm the oldest of 6 kids, mom and dad. I thought everything was cool. I grew up, it was Klanaheim back in my days. I was the only dark kid in the school. And in 2nd grade, they told us Spanish is the dead language. No speaking Spanish at school. And when my mom, she grew up in Anaheim too, and her whole junior high school was just all brown people. So it was racist, but my mom didn't bring me up, sniveling, whining, those white people, this, she taught me how to assimilate. So all my friends are from Okie, Arky, all this kind of stuff. I grew up, had a wonderful life. I'm watching TV shows like Father Knows Best. Beautiful white couple with beautiful 2 white kids, and a dog, and a white picket fence symbolizing they'd made it. So that's how I grew up watching that. And I realized this generation, it isn't about watching Father Knows Best. It's more like, who's your daddy? The way the world has changed so much. So I'm watching this and I'm influenced. I want my family to be like that. But in my home, my dad was drunk. He was grabbing my mom by the hair and doing all this kind of stuff. Next thing you know, my dad has a woman over there. He takes off with this woman. And, I'm about 11 years old, 10, 11 years old at that time. So I'm looking for love, and so the fellows in the street corner, I admired them. They looked like they're having a good time. So I kind of went and shared my grief. They gave me a brown paper bag, put airplane cement in there, glue, and told me how to start huffing that and start taking away my problems. And then they, introduced me to some alcohol. Then they gave me this black pill that's methadone, this red pill that's opiates, and how to mix them together, the 8 balls of the day. And so as a young teenager, I just grew into an angry young kid. And but I was a fire starter. I was a a leader. I didn't know what leadership was at that time, but I always got things going. So I started a group. We lived on Olive Street in Anaheim, so I started a group called Olive Street Crew. My family came out of one of the oldest gang neighborhoods, Colonia Catella in Anaheim, that still exists today. But so my whole background was gangs, drugs, all this type of things. And now my new thing is I'm doing it. So I can remember when I'd ask my mom, hey, buy me a bike. She'd tell me we don't have any money. So I'd go steal some, get arrested. And I can remember as a teenager when those handcuffs got put on me and the neighbors were watching, it was a sense of, I finally made it. I'm somebody. And I was just so mad at God, so mad at the world. There was no Jesus at Tucker. Never heard the words, hey, son, what do you want to be when you grow up? I love you. None of that stuff going on. But here I am growing up there. But at 15 years old, I made it to Anaheim High School, down to Anaheim High School. And I met a girl from the other side of the tracks, is how we called it then, a white girl. She was a cheerleader from Anaheim High School. And one night she invited me to come over to where she was babysitting so I could see her, brought some drugs over there, did the thing, like I said. And all my heartbreak, my dad broke my heart, my mom broke my heart. But now this love that I had for this girl, it was just, it did something here. It just kind of filled that place there. And I could remember at nighttime talking on our big phones. And when I'd call her at 11 o'clock at night, we'd talk for 3 hours. I don't know if you've ever had those kind of conversations.
Oh, yeah.
But, and then at the end of it, I go, hey, Annie, you hang up. And she go, no, you hang. And we did that for 30 months. The love drug's real.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, I deal with it people every day. The love drug's real. I was fulfilled. I was so happy. My mom, I told you, give me a ring. I'm going steady with this girl. I'm going to marry this girl. And so here I was at 15 years old. My life is good now. I got my woman. She's promised she's going to be there. And then sure enough, one day at Tasty Freeze, which was right across the street from Anaheim High School, I'm there with my friends just being happy because I'm in love. The love drug's got me, all of a sudden out of the corner of my left eye, because I was only 15 years old then, I had my best friend was Max. He's 16. When you're in high school, the difference between a 15-year-old and a 16-year-old, they got a driver's license.
Yeah.
So out of the corner of my left eye, 55 Chevy Nomad surface station wagon my buddy Max had coming down the street. And I can see right next to him, no bucket seats in,
the bench
seats,
yeah.
This girl whose arms around him, and it just happens to be a redhead. My Annie. At 15 years old, I didn't know this verse, where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. But my treasure was sitting next to my ex-best friend, going down the street, and I just raised my fist to God. And from that day on, just went to war. In every way you can think of, like I said, moved to San Francisco, Haight-Ashbury, became a hippie, taking LSD, doing that, free love, everything like that. Got busted for marijuana, got sent to the county jail here in Orange County for a year for $10 worth of marijuana. Back in the days, that's how it was. I went in a flower child, come out a wannabe thug, joined the biker group, started my own biker group like that. It was always, Harleys and getting out there, bars, fighting. It just became my whole life. I was at war with God. I can remember declaring war with God for messing up my life. And that finally, ended me at 30 years old, locked in a place called Chino State Prison. While I was there, I was like that prodigal son, I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. I'd come to my senses, and somebody invited me to a little chapel service. And it was a bald-headed, heavy, overweight, white guy. No tattoos, no gang stories, no anything, but he had a message about the forgiveness of Christ. I wasn't looking for heaven. I was just looking for some peace of mind, because all my 5 brothers and sisters, all my family members, my mom, everybody was happy. I was locked away because my lifestyle made me rob and steal from them. And so they knew I needed help. And so being in there like by myself, hearing that message, and then I can remember like it was yesterday, the guy that came in, Glenn Morrison from Follow Up Prison Ministries is called. Um, he said, "Would anybody like to give their life to Christ?" And that was, there was a drum roll inside of my heart. There was just nervousness, anxiety, because I didn't want to let anybody else know that I wanted to make that decision. But now I know it was the Holy Spirit of God. That day I stood up and it was like just thousands of pounds off of my back. And I said, I want to give my life to Christ. I don't get it all. I don't understand it all. And a lot of people says, you can't get saved the way you got saved. Because I said, I've tried drugs. I've tried this. I'm going to try God. People say, you can't try God. I found out that God doesn't read lips. He reads hearts. He knew what I was thinking, And that day forward, boom, got to my cell. I asked for a Bible. And that became Bible college for me. It was cool as can be. I had a captive audience, and my message was how to be happy in prison. And I started a group called God's Gang, because still rough around the man. I was a Peter all the way, like I said, I was a Christian, but don't even think about messing with me because I ain't going for that, So I started a group called God's Gang. Just wonderful. Spending the next 2 years locked up, doing my God's Gang thing and winning people to Christ. Got released. They told me look for a church. The inmate pastor told me look for a church out there that preaches the word. Ended up at a Baptist church in Anaheim called Magnolia Baptist Church. It was a little different thing. They're all, I'm used to being dressed like an inmate. I get over there and they're wearing some weird outfits, and
Sunday best.
Sunday best, and they're all dressed up and weird music, everything like that. It was all strange. It was definitely strange because I didn't know any Christian people, but I heard. So I get to the first Baptist church I went to in Anaheim. It's still there today, another pastor. But I was taught in prison after the message, go tell the pastor, give him some love and tell him, thank you, what a good message. So it was a good message. So my wife and I had a beautiful lady that married me when I was in prison. And my wife and I, when we went to the pastor after service to tell him what a good message, he goes, are you born again? I go, yeah. He goes, where did you get saved? I go, in prison. He goes, I'd like to recommend a Convicts for Christ church for you to go to. You'd fit in better over there because we don't really deal with mixed marriages. And I really didn't understand at the time what he was talking about. And then he goes, because you're black and she's white. And I go, well, actually, I'm a Blaxican, but I hear you. And there was some people, and there's still some people believe like that. So that was cool. So I went to go find another church, told the pastor I want to learn more about God. He pointed me to a place called Pacific Coast Baptist Bible College in San Dimas, which is an affiliate school of an old school guy named Jerry Falwell, which are what they call independent fundamentalist Baptists. So I ended up going to a Baptist Bible college. I had to go to the thrift store because you got to wear a suit and tie every day. They got their own rules. And I became meaner there than I did when I was on the streets, They'd always be saying, hate the sin, but not the sinner. But I said, I think we hate both, But I learned the word. And then, of all things, a psychology professor offered me a job at a place called Anaheim Baptist Church, my hometown. I get to go back to my Tarsus, and get back there and do it. Offers me a job. And my job title was extended daycare worker. And I glorified name for being a babysitter for kids. When they drop out to kids' Christian school, you watch them then. When they come out for recess, you watch them then. Lunchtime, after school, till the parents pick them up at 6. But I was just happy to be involved somehow in the ministry. And then I learned the thing about Jesus said, follow me and I'll make you to become fishers of men. And so, man, I realized in my life I don't have no fancy fishing gear or anything like that, or little Geiger counters in the boat to tell you where the fish is at. So I got a canoe and one oar. But one of the things that I found out on fishing is I catch mainly carp. I don't know when the last time somebody invited you out for a carp dinner, but no bougie fish. Once in a while, marlin might jump in, but basically carp. And so I started bring them to my church that I go to. And so the girls got their tits hanging out, their asses hanging out, booze smelling, meth smelling, all this stuff. And the church people are tripping because, I know how to get a crowd, and they're just tripping. And finally, one of the deacons, they took me back room and says, you need to bring some tithers in. You got a little different flavors. So that went on for almost 2 years till finally I got the loving right foot of fellowship. And they said, you need to start your own church. So in 1982, in one of my friends' houses, named Wayne Palmer, 10 of us got together and started the first set free. And the name of it at that time was Baptist Church, because that's what I figured I was, a Baptist. The other Baptists in the area said, please take the Baptist off the sign. You got guitars playing. You're bringing in rap music. Because you think back then, I'm telling you, I had people from organizations you would never think would be saying something about rap music, Victory Outreach. Sonny Argyle, the leader, that goes, that's the devil's music, Nicky Cruz, people who are old gang band. It was just not accepted. Now everybody's got a rap group. It's just common thing, like I said. So started Set Free and, just out on the streets. But I've always taken people into our home. And that's always been just our signature thing, like it says, bringing people in. And then the next thing you know, like I see in a little gang neighborhood in Anaheim, I see a little warehouse there. And I love to rent that, but I know it'll be too expensive. All the fearful doubts and everything you do when you're starting something. But God sent me some people that just loved the Lord and wanted to help me do it. So we started in 1982, like I said, the first Set Free church in Anaheim. And we had about 50, 60 people. And my mother came to the church one Sunday morning. And here I am trying to build a church, change my thing. I had a real bad reputation in Anaheim for being trouble, and not good. My mother stood up in the middle of one of my sermons and said, if I were you folks, I would not trust this kid. He's a con. So that's my mother, wonderful lady. And but that's what I was fighting against. And just sticking in there, I got to lead my mom to the Lord, got to lead my dad to the Lord, 5 brothers, and got to lead to the Lord. I got to lead my wife's Sicilian, heavy-duty Catholic, or folks from Sicily. And when I was into this born-again thing, they were like not having that. They're all Catholic out. They ended up becoming believers in Christ. My father-in-law ended up opening up a Set Free church in Ocean Beach, California. I mean, just miracle after miracle, miracle. So getting locked up turned around to be a blessing in my life. And a lot of times, well, matter of fact, hundreds and hundreds of times over the decades, moms, dads, everybody, hey, could you pray for my son, Johnny? He's going to court this Monday. And, in my mind, I'm going, how much time would you like me to pray that he gets? Because sometimes we just need to be sat down and learn. And for me, because I'm a slow learner, I'm one of those people, you might have met him before, go big or go home. In other words, I'd like to push the envelope. I always like to have that philosophy to do it first and ask for forgiveness later. And the first time I heard the scripture, can a man take fire in his bosom and not get burnt? My first thought was, how burnt will I get? And so all those things happen, and we get this church going. And so to make extra money, I happened to slip in a time when I was in jail stuff, I learned martial arts. And so I was teaching martial arts to make a little extra money. That was my tent making I was doing. And my first client, there was a thing called the Marketplace. Remember when they had paper things, and stuff like a magazine, a little thing called Marketplace. I advertised karate taught from a Christian perspective, whatever that means. Trying to get something so I could bait them in,
Christian karate.
Yeah, Christian karate, And so my first student was a lady named Lois. She came in, she was a court reporter, all this stuff like that. And she'd see all these people coming into my little church warehouse. She'd go, who are all these hobos? And I go, that's my congregation.
Hmm.
And she goes, "You need any help? I'll make you some flyers or something like that." So she came, volunteered to help. Next thing you know, she's helping me, talk to people, do all that kind of stuff. But her husband happened to be a cameraman at a little place, but the biggest place in the world, network called Trinity Broadcasting Network. Biggest microphone on planet Earth for Christianity. And so her husband, one of the cameramen there. So he's going to work, and Jan Crouch, the owner, she mentioned to her secretary, where my friend's husband worked at, where do we send people that are homeless?
Hmm.
And they said, well, we send them to a place called Set Free. Out of somewhere, that Jesus sent them. Paul and Jan Krause, the owners of TBN, showed up at my place when we're feeding people lunch, just doing the same typical homeless ministry thing. And the two of them come up, and Jan Crouch says, "I've never met anybody more like Jesus than you, Pastor Phil."
Hmm.
And I'm going, because God, she thought it was a big deal to have all these people living with me. I try to tell people, I'm a hippie, communal living. I believe heaven's going to be like a slumber party. So that's already my gig. For some people, people might look at me, hey,
Hmm.
just the whole thing, and then feeding the people and helping. I go, these are our kind of people, like I says, this is the bottom feeders, the carp, they come there. But she loved it so much, she just said, hey, what can we do, and they helped us with places to live for these kids. They just became biggest blessing in the world. But the biggest blessing in the world at that time turned into be a hardship for me, because a lot of people don't realize it's kind of like, hey, you're a good looking guy. That can be a curse.
Hmm.
You have, if you're a worship leader or you're up there on stage, you got women, look at that attractive looking guy. You know what I mean? It's just that type of thing. Well, like I said, they asked me if I wanted my own TV program. People pay big bucks. And I'm going, you got to be kidding me. And before you know it, they asked me what time. I said, okay, Friday nights at 11 o'clock. I wanted all the, back in those days, there was only little scrolling space. So you're going to hit TBN. So I want all those late night owls, those people can't
Hmm.
go to sleep, miserable and stuff like that, are scrolling. They're going to see TBN. And after a couple of years, being in that mix with them, people would fly in from other countries and go to Disneyland, Knott's Berry Farm, and Set Free.
Hmm.
True story. I got arrested for having too many people in church. We'd blown out that warehouse building and to the next one. And it, like I said, blessing, getting to win people, blessing, all that kind of stuff. But, and when people ask, how'd you do it? I just, Jesus, because I didn't know. Every week I'd ask my assistant, I go, are they back again? It's one of those things where it's just overwhelming. Um, but at least in my life, and I've seen it in a few other people's lives, you start believing your press,
Hmm.
like when they ask, how did it happen? Well, I am gifted in this area, or I am the, and took my eyes off of Jesus, went down for the count.
Hmm.
And I can remember just like it was yesterday, too. Like I said, 1993, Easter service at La Palma Park, Grover Stadium, which is in Anaheim right over there. I got on the stage, and I told close to 8,000 people, uh, I'm done, spiritually bankrupt, go to another Set Free, because we'd started over 100 then, or go to Calvary, go anywhere, like I said, but I'm finished,
Hmm.
and I was spiritually bankrupt. I said, I got nothing to offer you. I felt I was doing everybody a favor by telling them, I'm out of here. I didn't think about abandonment issues,
Hmm.
and this was finally the place of all places. There were thousands of people, uh, just like you as a kid. Oh, how cool. I mean, I had half the staff at Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa, coming to our church. I had people, youth pastors from Mariners everywhere, because it blew my mind too. Like I said, people would 2 blocks down, be greeted, like I said, by bikers, by cholos, lowriders, this, that, and everybody together in one place. People were saving seats on Saturday night for Sunday morning service. But my last little handbook I wrote was how to build an empire and how to burn one down. And I let people know, hey, quite often I'm better at the latter. So all that happened, and like I said, I just wanted to run. I don't know if you've ever felt like that before, want to quit, give up. And so one of the places we did outreaches the most that I just loved was Venice Beach. Get on the boardwalk out there, my son's rap, get out there, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 people there, just blah. All the freaks of nature are there, every 4-footed beast, creeping, crawling thing. I love it. That's my home. So to run away, I hit it over there, kind of like King David's cave trip, I hit it over. That was my cave thing. I was going to go hide over at Venice Beach, and to make money. I got a little crew that always wanted to go with me. So, they followed me to Venice Beach, and we started selling incense on the boardwalk, and I just wanted to hide over there. And I thought I could hide. And then one day there's a knock on the public bathroom door that I was in. And it was somebody going, Pastor Phil, is that you in there? And I'd taken off our signature Train to Serve Jesus off my van and all that stuff, and put another sticker on called Shit Face and Pissed Off. And because I'm always advertised where I'm at. I'm high on Jesus. I'm telling you, I'm high on Jesus. If I think life sucks, there. So she's knocking on that door. Can you pray for me? And man, I felt like, Adam in the garden there, hiding from God too. But I came out. I wanted to pray she died. That's what I wanted to pray for at the time where I was at. But I came out, prayed for her, and I stayed bitter for close to 4 months. And I had such a tight crew, and I had this one guy named Chip with me, and every day we'd wake up, he'd ask me, hey, are we still pissed off at God? And I said, yeah, and like I said, it was close to 4 months. And during that 4 months, I got offered every negative thing in life that life could offer you, that people would think is cool, but would just take me down. So I dealt with all that. And then when it was close to the 4-month period, I get a phone call from an old pastor friend named Tommy Barnett. And he has a mega church in Phoenix, Arizona. And he called and said, hey, I need your help. Those little words, I need your help, were my spiritual defibrillators. They were my mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. They were my, I got you. He said, I need your help. My son coming to LA. He wants to open up a place called the LA International Church and Dream Center. And he needs your help and your bikers and all you guys. So I said, hey, I can't offer you anything except I'll stand at the door and greet people. Because that's all I felt I had strengthened me. I don't want to teach, preach, I just want.
What do you think led to that?
My leadership at that time was me, myself, and I. No collaboration, no accountability. It just turned into a one-man show. My way or the highway. Covering sin and nobody, nobody could tell me anything. Yeah, it was,
Sounds like you were edging God out.
Yeah, totally, and I was taking credit, and it was the pride drug. And the pride drug for me, and I know for lots of people, that's the thing that, comes back, and especially when we think we've done some great thing, great feat or something like that. So Tommy called me back over there, got me a house in my crew, a house right across the street from the building where they were using for this new church. And I started just by greeting at the door. And they come from Phoenix, and they're in Echo Park, LA, is where they started this, and they're bringing kind of country Christian music. They were bringing a flavor that just wasn't LA,
Mm.
and so my kids are rappers. I got a rock band. Within 6 months, we took a building. It was called Bethel Temple, 900-seater. Within 6 months, we had that place packed out. Had it packed out, and we're part of another little revival again. And it just the God thing, total God thing. And next thing you know, Pastor Tommy takes me over to look at this hospital called the Queen of Angels Hospital. You know, just a gigantic hospital on 10 acres and stuff like that. And he says, I'll get that place if you'll do this with me. Because his son was just 20 years old, just young, good kid, but young. So we got that. Next thing you know, the Dream Center is rock and rolling. I convinced in the Lord over 300 people from beautiful Orange County, Newport Beach, and all over here to move to downtown LA, Echo Park area, to be in the biggest gang neighborhood around there. In 1994, when drive-bys were going all over, they came up there and helped us pioneer the LA International Church and Dream Center. And we did that for the next few years, going great. Then the wreckage, you know how we say it in our industry, the wreckage of our past caught up with me. And in 1998, I get 3 women from the Old Set Free Church accusing me of being a cult leader. And one of my old guys paid for their attorney for them to get me. And they were going to, they knew I had insurance. So they were going to do one of these, sue me. So I spent the next 18 months going to court here in Santa Ana Superior Court. And the charge, things are a little different nowadays, but the charge, like I says, was accusing me of being a cult leader, making them work on the TBN phones, making them babysit late night hours, just abuse like that. And so it took 18 months fighting that. Back in those days, once again, you had a thing called newspapers. I was always making the front page. I'm very Googleable, front page, like it says. And, I was innocent at the end of it. But just when people see something on there, people read it and usually believe it. It's kind of like a friend of ours, you may know him, Michael Ketterer. He's a Christian musician. Came from the South, came out here, worked with some of our local churches, and he went on my favorite show, America's Got Talent. And he gets on there and sings, and Simon Cowell, the head of the show, who's known as a hard ass, starts to break down and cry, and beautiful. And so my buddy Michael Ketterer, who's from this Bethel movement and all these different little churches, next thing you know, he's pushed to the finals, and Simon Cowell gets Garth Brooks to write a song for him, and Garth Brooks tells my friend Michael, hey, I'm going to have you open up for me, Notre Dame Stadium, 82,000 seats. All this great stuff's going on. And then the night of the finals over there, you see TMZ arresting Michael for felony spousal abuse. And Michael says, I'm innocent. But when somebody sees anything on the news or reads things, it must be true. And 3 days later, he's let go, and he's innocent of those charges. But the stain, the cloud, all those things like that. So for me, I went through a whirlwind of those type of things, but got back up on the saddle and, started mentoring, getting set frees going. And one of the things I did, and then in 2008, hope I'm not pushing too fast too far, but in 2008, I've always had biker ministries, always, like I said, I just left the one I started one in 1983 called Christ's Sons, and they're still going strong today. They're in San Diego County right now mainly. And then in 1990, I started one called Servants for Christ. And like I said, in Montana this weekend, man, 9 churches now, hundreds of bikers and all that who love Jesus and everything like that. in the 2000s, I started a group called the Set Free Soldiers. And I've been around like the bike scene for a lot of years, Christian thing, everything like that. So I'd hear somebody make a comment every once in a while, go, man, Set Free Soldiers. Hey, they're Christians, but don't mess with them, man. They'll beat your ass. That wasn't true, not at all. Never had any history of violence in our thing. That's never been part of our thing. But there was a little thing inside of my head when I heard somebody say that. I go, hey, kind of a little prideful. Yeah, you're right. Don't mess with us. And that little baby pride, got fed. And in 2008, right here in beautiful Newport Beach, Blackie's Bar, right down the street. I pull in with a crew of my Set Free Soldiers, and some of them want to get hamburgers, drinks, whatever like that. A handful of us walk into Blackie's and go back to the pool table to shoot a little pool. Another little bike clubs comes in. They just happen to be the biggest bike club in America or the world. And they come in there, and trouble happens. Next thing you know, I'm telling you, my house had biggest raid in Orange County history. I'm locked up in the Orange County jail, and I've got about 9 of my Set Free Soldiers in there with me, and a couple of them are my sons. And I looked at them, and I knew they were there because they're doing what everybody does in life. Everybody plays follow the leader somehow. And I knew they were there because of my choices, not because theirs. They wouldn't be pulling into some bar. That's not them. So that day in 2008, July of 2008, I can remember, once again, just like it was yesterday, very instrumental in my walk with Christ 17 years ago. I said, I led you guys into this. I'm going to lead you out of this. And for the last 17 years, I made a declaration. This time, instead of being pissed off at God, I said, I'm going to become a professional forgiver. I'm going to just, love on every person. I want to get as close to Jesus' thoughts. Father, forgive them. And I get offended when no matter how he treats you. And that day it was, we fought that case for 2 years. They were trying to put me away for life, all that stuff. But God opened the doors and everything copacetic. And that was my lifestyle at the time, a Christian, hardcore biker who had fun pulling in every place and people getting a little bit of that type of thing. And so as we teach people, it's not the drugs and alcohol are the symptoms, but it's the lifestyle that needs to change. So for me, that biker lifestyle has not been part of my life. I've had to begrudgingly in my own mind, when I'm invited to all these different places, say, no, thank you. Not even the local cook's corner and the nice little, because it ain't the same for me. I've been in the culture for, 5 decades. And so it's been real good. And now I get to do little things like next Saturday, a group, called Black Sheep, which is a big Christian motorcycle club. I'll be speaking at their event in Ventura next Saturday, and I get to do things like that now instead of pulling in with the crew and looking super cool or bad, look at us, all that type of stuff. Pride, in another form. And so when I got busted like that, because that was front page, this, that, I had more Christians calling me up, telling me negative stuff than anybody. I'm a close friend. I mean, everything happened. My wife was put in a paddy wagon. I mean, they took our dog. I mean, you name it. I had grandkids out in the street. It was a very heavy thing, just a sad day. And this was before Sons of Anarchy had come out. So they thought we were the Sons of Anarchy. They dug up our yards looking for drugs. They got our computers looking for prostitution going on there, possibly. They're looking for every kind of weapon they could find, um, all that kind of stuff, like it says. And it was just there looking in the wrong place, wrong thing. Did we look like we could be those people? Yeah, no doubt about it. Did I affiliate with people and try to help people? Every shot caller of every gangster, white power, brown power, black power group in Orange County came by my house. So I can look back and go, it did look a little shady, but it was our version of trying to help people. So that was, like I said, that was the 2008, 2010, the trial, everything was over. So being the typical pastor, Phil, was a little rough around the edges, because of what people thought. And for years since then, people have seen me go, oh, they let you out? Because the newspapers had them convinced that I would be locked away forever. So that cloud's always been there, multiple clouds over my head. So in 2010, I go, man, you know what? This ain't making. So one of my buddies says, why don't you start a treatment center? You like working with addicts. And so the same houses they raided, the same places they saw our Harleys all over, the same everything, while I was on probation for my black is in, while I was on probation. California, they got a different name now, but I was given a license, is a licensed drug and alcohol treatment center called Broadway Treatment Center. That was the street we were on, Broadway Treatment Center in Anaheim, California. And so God made it, because these addicts that I work with, at least, the ones that come our way and stuff like that, they're more impressed with all the bad talk about me, because they're used to that. And so it turned into be a thing where all my kids work in that industry now. I still, like I said, I just left facilitating the group this morning. Do one-on-ones and take them to, all the different little things, like I says. And every Sunday night, you've been there, like I said, every Sunday night, I have recovery church, and every day of the week, some kind of recovery meeting. So last 17 years, that's been my, new thing. 6 weeks ago, though, to bring things that were added up to date, 6 weeks ago, on Sundays, I was always taking our people to churches. So I have a friend named Tim Story, life coach. So he wanted to do a church. So I said, I don't know. Okay, I'll help you out. So, I know how to bring people to something. So I'd bring people there. I'd have fun coming there. I love greeting at the door. I love in the parking lot. Hello, good to have you. Tim's a real good friend of mine. He's my life coach. So we did all that stuff like that. And then he realized he's an event speaker and got in the road. So his nephew did that over. So I looked for another place. So I found one of my sons is the pastor on staff at a place called New Song in Santa Ana, New Song Church. Korean pastor named Dave Gibbons. Great guy and everything like that. So found a church there. So I was taking 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 people to church there, doing that. Been doing that for the last 3 years, clients. Again, for the last 3 years. And then my pastor over there, he wrote a book, The Shape of My Eyes. He's Korean and what it's like to be a Korean. So he wrote a book, and he's been on a book tour. So when I see him, I go, man, hey, I miss you, and hey, I came here because I like hearing you speak, and so, he's my good friend. So I teased him and I go, listen, I want to see you, preach it, and he goes, Pastor Phil, God speaks through everybody. And I go, yeah, I could just stay home listening to my wife and I'll follow that philosophy. I said, when I go to hear the Rolling Stones, if Mick Jagger ain't there, I'm gone, And so I caught myself complaining, and I counsel people for decades, do all things about murder and complaining. Don't complain about your church, all that. So this was just 6, 7 weeks ago. I was actually complaining because my favorite pastor wasn't there doing church like I thought he ought to be doing it. So I get a nudge from the head guy, the head deity in this. Well, why don't you start your own church again? Seeing how you know how to do this and everything like that. 6 weeks ago. And I go, oh, Lord, are you kidding me? I'm thinking of Joshua and Caleb, close to 80 years old. You know, Caleb says, hey, Josh, give me that mountain over there. He's still going for it. And I've never retired. I just haven't refired that, So 6 weeks ago, I said, okay, Lord, I'll do it. 6 weeks ago, I announced, hey, next Sunday, my little warehouse over there spot, I'm going to do church. So I started church 6 weeks ago on Sunday morning over there, a few handful of people. And the next day, I get a call from the landlord that back in my first church, the warehouse where you went to, that landlord called me up and said, hey, I got a church facility for rent. You want to rent it? And I go, are you kidding me? The last 6 weeks, we have worked on that church property, getting the toilets, the plumbing, this, and all the logistics and everything. Got that going. And don't tell anybody, but this Sunday will be our first service there. And hey, back in the saddle ladder, like I said, just fresh from our Montana thing, just fresh in a couple weeks doing our Set Free Nationals with all of our Set Free, just full of fire, full of God, knowing that I'm in the last inning of life. Don't have doubts about that, and that's all cool. Getting it ready to pass the baton. I'm biting off 1 year, and I'm kind of like David and Jonathan no more. When people ask, can you do this? Well, perhaps. We'll see. Not any great, like I said, conquer the world, but I'm loving the opportunities that God's given, just like being here. This is cool as can be, just being part of the community of people in the Lord, and especially, like I says, in the recovery community. That's just, it's a hungry crowd, and watching them come to the Lord, and, watching what happens when they don't, take it seriously, hopefully they'll make it back. So
yeah, there's a lot of people hurting out there. What is one thing that kept you pursuing God through all the ups and downs?
Oh man, like I said, I have tried the running thing, and all I do is get worn out. And I always got somebody, that one person, who just says something that gives me hope. And just, no matter, I can remember my kids were a rap song a while back, and they had a part that says, I'm done with the sin. And in my mind, I'm going, I'm almost done with the sin, It took a while to get back to learning how to just surrender it all, just like that first love, getting back to that first love. And, and like I said, I need big wake-up calls, So at this stage of life, it's like the Lord has a pleasant, wonderful knife in my neck. If I turn too far to the right, I feel it. Too far to the left, and that's it. I let people, and I love working with the newbies. The new, like I says, I call it the maternity ward. I do a Tuesday night Bible study that just people all from they're brand new in this. Sunday night, like I said, we do the recovery part. I have one of my assistants do the deeper life, things like that. I just like them coming in pissed off, irritated, hating on things. That's my cup of tea, doing it. But yeah, there's always been, somebody in the mix, because I've always kept people around. So God speaks through them in different little ways that keeps me going. And great wife. They call her Saint Sandra, my wife. We just last year celebrated 48 years together, and so she's the biggest inspiration. She's always stuck in there, no matter what, and still does. I tell people she used to be my playmate. Now she's my nursemaid, you know, and then like I says, watching, my kids, and then I give grandkids a ride to school every morning, so I get to be part of every different part of life, but watching people get it, and the way I refer to getting high on Jesus, realizing that's it. So through many toils and terrors, I have already come, and so it definitely is amazing grace. And at this stage, I'm either their grandfather figure or their daddy figure, and so a good spot. It's enjoyable, and we keep a tattoo ministry going on, so people know that we've even got characters there. I had Chuck Smith Jr. over at my place the other day, so I'm starting a seer ministry.
Okay.
Seer Sage one, where I just get a bunch of old timers that have been around, and then invite anybody who would like to maybe get some nuggets of wisdom from them, or see what it's like to be old serving the Lord, and that type of thing. And there's especially in California, people look at us a little bit different because we got every type of character, over here in ministry. And then, like I said, with different movements, like I said, I had a guy named Lonnie Frisbee lived with me the last 3 years of his life. And so when Greg Laurie made that movie, some of Jesus Revolution movie, they showed this figure, Lonnie Frisbee. A lot of people never heard of him because he was kind of written out of the history books for a while because of his HIV and homosexual behavior, So here, that movie brought him to life. A buddy of mine had written 3 books about Lonnie's life because he was dear friends with a guy named Roger Sachs. Nobody would even read those books. But when the movie came out, bestsellers, sold off the rack. So, a lot of stuff with anybody who's older or been around a little bit, you can learn stuff from, hopefully avoid.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming. I have one final question for you. If someone's struggling or in that anger place, what words of wisdom would you share with them?
I found out that when my 2-year-old granddaughter is crying, usually because she didn't get her way. And I found out also when my 22-year-old granddaughter is crying, it's usually because she didn't get her way. And so that's what I found out is we want to control things, and we control nothing. And when we can't control something, we get angry, and I wanted my life to be a certain way, I want this, and, I'm not realizing that it's all the Lord, it's all God, every opportunity, everything, it's all Him, and I used to be able to say it in words, like, God first, but that's, just up here. But, in the heart, I just tell anybody, do not give up, get back up and go for it again. Put on that full armor of God, get around with people, that you see doing it. And I found that out. We are the books that most people read. And like I said, I pray you stick in there because it's a long distance race. And but the joy of the Lord is definitely the sustaining power in it. And just getting mad, just getting drama. And let me close with this. Fentanyl's bad, it's epidemic and anything like that, but by far the worst drug of all is the love drug. I mean, relationships. I mean, all day long, I have grandsons in their 20s that go with a girl for a long time. I go, hey, when are you guys going to get married? And the typical comment is, That's your generation. You
Mm.
know, it's just those type of things we've trying to be self-made or this like that. Hey, good luck. Uh, you know, you're gonna serve somebody. Bob Dylan said it good. You're gonna serve somebody. It might be the devil or it's gonna be the Lord, but you're gonna serve somebody.
Mm.
So yeah, and just loving, like it says, it is the goodness of God that leads people to repentance. And so I'm having a good time just loving on people. I ain't mad at nobody. Ain't arguing with nobody. Um, you know,
It's a freeing way to live.
yeah, staying sweet.
Well, thank you so much for coming down. This is great. I appreciate it.
Likewise, thank you very much.
You got it.
You got it.